Welcome to Illuminati Silver. We tell you the truth about silver. Today is Wednesday, the 22nd of January 2020, and yesterday we published a video entitled The Future of the EU, US Dollar and the Euro by Controversially Greg, which has received quite a good response. And on Monday, Peter Schiff loses his Bitcoin wealth, lesson to us all, which has also received a very positive response, even though some of the comments were critical. And on Sunday, Edward VIII gold sovereign sells for £1 million, which has received a positive response, though fewer people have watched it. Now, we've placed links to these different videos covering somewhat different subject matters in the description box below, and certainly recommend, if you haven't already done so, a brief listen to each of them, if you have the time. Now, today we're addressing another issue, a mix really between gold and other investments. We cite an article published by Bloomberg yesterday, quoting where David Rosenberg, former chief economist at Gluskin Sheff Associates Inc, recommends where investors should place their money moving forward. Let's take a look at that article. Gold is a no-brainer in Rosenberg's bear case portfolio. Bloomberg article dated 21st of January 2020 by Divya Balji. Shelter in gold, bet on emerging markets, and buy bonds in drag. So says David Rosenberg, who believes an economic slowdown is on its way, despite enduring job gains, easing trade tensions between the US and China, and record-breaking stock markets in North America. Quote, if things are so great, why did the Fed have to cut rates last year? Unquote, he said in an interview at Bloomberg's Toronto office. Quote, if things are so great, why did the Fed have to embark on QE4 that we're not supposed to call QE4? Unquote. Rosenberg started his own independent research firm in January, Rosenberg Research and Associates Inc, after more than a decade as chief economist at Gluskin Sheff Associates Inc. His warning of a US housing bubble in 2005 when he was at Merrill Lynch proved prescient, but he stayed bearish long after the economy had revived. He was bullish for 5 years starting in 2012, but has turned negative in recent years. The roaring stock market is essentially a bull market in financial engineering, stoked by the Fed Reserve's purchases of Treasury bills starting in October, interest rate cuts, US President Donald Trump's tax overhaul, which handed America's top banks a $32 billion windfall, and corporate share buybacks, Rosenberg said. Quote, this is a liquidity-driven market. Liquidity is your best friend on Monday and your worst coward on Friday, unquote. Last year was like just throwing a dart, he said. Right now, it's indiscriminate buying. Investing isn't supposed to be like that. Investing isn't supposed to be easy. Now, while economists only see a 30% chance of a US recession in 2020, Rosenberg said a retreat in spending on restaurants, movies and furnishings and other discretionary spending are harbingers of a slowdown, along with a deceleration in US core inflation. Quote, when you stop hearing, where are we going for dinner tonight? And instead you start hearing, who's cooking dinner? Then you know that a new form of frugality is taking place, unquote. Now here's how he's battening down the hatches in his model portfolio. Gold. Gold is a place you want to be. I think that it's partly because it's inversely correlated with interest rates. But it's also an insurance policy when things go wrong, he said. There's no such thing as a no-brainer, but this is close. Bullion is off to a roaring start this year as strategists from Goldman Sachs to UBS Group AG called for $1,600 an ounce, even before the Iranian crisis impacted global markets. The yellow metal has gained about a third since August 2018 and was trading around $15.60 per ounce on Monday. Japan. Japan's stock market is one that's a blind hold for Rosenberg. Female participation rates have risen to levels higher than the OECD average, and the nation has opened its doors to foreign labour. The country has also pushed companies to distribute dividends, introduce and/or expand share buybacks, and have allowed for foreigners on corporate boards as shareholder activism picks up. This is revolutionary in Japan. Bond proxies in the stock market, or what Rosenberg calls bonds in drag, are also good investments as the economy heads into a downturn. Utilities, REITs and pipelines, REITs are real estate investment trusts, which he calls asset-backed cash flow generators, are worth holding. It's really more about putting together a portfolio of stocks, non-cyclical, liquid, strong balance sheets, with not much of a refinancing calendar, that have been able to increase their dividends, he said. Downright cheap energy stocks are also favoured by Rosenberg. Energy stocks are not priced for WTI where we are right now. They're priced for something that's got to be at least 20 to 30% lower. Defence stocks are a cheaper way to boost exposure to tech as countries beef up military spending. Defence is actually a technology. You can buy it at a lower multiple. Everybody is spending more money on military. The one thing that Trump has done, he's done a lot of stuff. He has successfully pressured the NATO allies to spend more on military. Endgame. The Fed's asset purchases have created so much liquidity in global markets that it should be concerned, Rosenberg said. There'll be some other solution than just the Fed expanding its balance sheet in perpetuity, he said, because that's what's creating this bubble. The US and Canadian economies will slow and central banks will cut interest rates. Eventually, the Fed will have to print money and the Treasury will have to distribute it to the public to stimulate growth. The so-called helicopter drop of money. There's going to be an end game, and it is the magical money tree, he said. End of article. Now, we have said for many years that the gold and silver pumpers have done a disservice to those who follow them, who simply believed that the US dollar and the economy was about to crash anytime soon within the last 10 plus years, and that equity markets would halve or even collapse by 2/3, when to date, frankly, almost the opposite has happened, and investors who perhaps looked a little further afield and took more notice of more credible investment advisors would have obtained gains last seen, really, in the boom times of the 1980s. Now, that said, we're now beginning to reach the top of the mountain, so to speak. We do not believe we're there quite yet, as President Trump seems, in an election year, keen to undertake now as many trade deals as possible. We'll be looking at additional tax cuts and potentially some form of major infrastructure spending, all designed to juice the economy to ensure his re-election. We're not condemning him for this, as most politicians would do exactly the same thing. Now, if he is successful, we will this year see a Dow above 30,000, the dollar index holding ground between 96 to 98, and gold and silver constantly hitting headwinds until markets start to admit the party is over. Now, next week we shall be publishing our gold and silver forecast for 2020, but that said, we will be the first to admit that whilst we're still confident precious metals for 2020 are the thing to be considering and investing in, we're even more confident about precious metals for 2021 and 2022. But more on that in another video. Meanwhile, we do not disagree with what Rosenberg states in his article, except that we think the bubble will grow a little bigger for a little longer than he expects it to. It's an interesting position, but one we hope you'll find useful. Now, for interest, at the time of writing, which is 12:30 GMT, the dollar index is holding at 97.6. Gold is down just $1 on the week so far at 15.55, and silver is down 26 cents on the week at 17.77. Thank you so much for listening. If you haven't already done so, please subscribe to our channel and press the bell sign so that you are notified of videos as and when they are published. And we have placed links in the description box to some useful books that you may find relevant before you undertake a gold, silver, precious metal purchase or wish to look at geopolitical events and some of the issues that surround them. We hope you have found this video interesting and informative, and if so, please give it a thumbs up and share it on social media. Please ensure that you have subscribed to our channel and press the bell sign so that you are notified of any future videos. Also, kindly visit our website at illuminatisilver.com, and if you haven't already done so, please subscribe either as a free or paying member for regular email updates and offers. Disclaimer: Illuminati Silver owners come from a background of banking, international wealth management and economics. Having now retired from these worlds, we are not qualified to give investment advice. Therefore, this and other productions must not be deemed to be giving such advice and merely represent the personal views of its owners.